For my 30th birthday, I booked a cozy family dinner at our favorite restaurant. No one came. A few weeks later, my mom sent out invitations for my little sister's 25th. A big life milestone. Price of admission? $500 per person. So I sent her $1 with the note. For your big celebration. Some months later, a police officer knocked on my door because my parents told everyone I was mentally unstable. Let me tell you how we got there. My name is Kate Walker. I was 29, and all of this happened right before I hit 30. That magic age when relatives suddenly decide your uterus is on a countdown and your personality is up for public discussion. I'm a freelance graphic designer in Portland, Maine. I do branding for small businesses, logos, color palettes, social media headers. Nothing glamorous, just deadlines, coffee, and way too many Zoom calls. Work comes in through referrals and a couple of freelance platforms. 2 years ago, my income was finally steady enough to get a mortgage on a tiny one-bedroom condo. The interest rate is rude. The payment eats about a third of what I make. But it's mine. When the walls start closing in, I pack up my laptop and go to a co-working space downtown that overlooks the harbor. I sit by the window, pretend the fishing boats are my co-workers, and answer client emails about how the logo should be brighter but calmer. Somehow. Growing up, I was the quiet, easy kid. Straight A student, no drama, did what I was told. My little sister Maddie? The opposite. You probably know this dynamic. The younger one is a walking excuse. You want a new iPhone, Maddie? Of course, sweetheart. You failed your finals? It's okay. You'll retake them. Meanwhile, I was the one who didn't need anything. Our parents, Linda and Robert Walker, are a very average American couple. My dad works in supply at a boat repair yard. My mom runs the front desk at a private dental clinic on Maple Street. No one's rich. No one's starving. They still live in the same neighborhood where we grew up, about 40 minutes from me if the highway isn't being a nightmare. Maddie still lives with them. I moved out right after college. She never quite launched. Different story. The important part is, I always told myself I wasn't resentful, or I thought I wasn't, right up until my 30th was on the horizon. 2 weeks before my birthday, I sat in my little condo and tried to figure out how to celebrate. I didn't want some big party with half strangers from the co-working space. I wanted something small and real. There's this restaurant on the waterfront, Harbor House, that's been around since the 90s. It's where we went for every special occasion when I was a kid. Their fish cakes are legendary. Their chowder tastes like the Atlantic in a good way. I decided, that's where I'd turn 30. Just me and my family. Simple. I called my mom. It rang forever before she picked up. In the background, the TV was blasting some reality talk show where everyone screams over each other. "Hey, Mom, I wanted to ask about my birthday," I said. "I thought we could all go to Harbor House. Just family. You, Dad, Maddie, and me. I'll book a table for 4 at 6 p.m. on Saturday the 14th. She went quiet for a beat. "Fine. We'll come," she said finally, like I'd suggested a trip to the DMV. That was it. No, "Oh, that sounds lovely. No, we'd love to." Just, fine. I told myself she was tired. Long day at work. Good mood postponed. After we hung up, I texted Maddie. "Hey, 14th, 6 p.m., Harbor House. Family dinner for my birthday. You coming?" She replied almost instantly. "Okay, I'll be there." No enthusiasm, but at least she answered. Low bar, but still. I booked a table for 4 by the window. The hostess even remembered us. Said it was nice to see me again, and made a note about my birthday. I actually felt a little flutter of anticipation. The next 2 weeks, I threw myself into prep. I found a dark blue dress at Harborview Mall. Not ball gown dramatic, but definitely nicer than my usual zoom from waist up outfits. It cost about what I usually spend on groceries for a week. I told myself turning 30 happens only once. I got a haircut, did my nails, tried very hard to feel like a main character instead of background extra. Work, of course, chose that week to explode. 3 clients all wanted final designs by Friday. So I camped out at the co-working space every evening, tinkering with fonts and colors while people asked, "So how are you celebrating?" I told them about the family dinner. Everyone smiled and said, "That's so sweet. Very cozy." Saturday came. The weather was strangely mild for a March in Maine. Blue sky, barely any wind. I cleaned the apartment, ran a load of laundry, took my time in the shower, did my makeup carefully, and slid into the new dress. In the mirror, I thought, for 30, I don't look too bad. I got to Harbor House 10 minutes early. The hostess, woman in her 50s, recognized me right away and led me to our table by the window, already set for 4. The place smelled like dill, fresh bread, and something buttery and fishy that made my stomach growl. I sat, ordered a glass of red, and started waiting. 6 p.m. No one. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Weird, but okay. It's Saturday. Maybe traffic is awful. 6:15. Still no sign of them. I started to get that little prickle of worry. I called my mom. Long rings. Then it cut off. I called my dad. Same thing. Texted, "I'm at the restaurant." "Where are you?" Nothing. Our waiter, a young guy named Anthony who's been there a few years, came over. "Want to order while you wait?" he asked gently. You could see he was already feeling bad for me. "Let's give them a few more minutes." I tried to smile. 6:30. My heart was doing that slow, heavy thud. What if there'd been an accident? A flat tire? Something with Dad's heart? I called again. Voicemail. Texted both of them. "Mom, Dad, I'm getting worried. Just let me know you're okay." The other diners had started glancing over. One woman at a nearby table kept looking at the 3 empty chairs around me. Woman alone at a table for 4, staring at her phone. You know the picture. By 7, my cheeks were burning. Anthony came back. "Are you sure you don't want anything? I can bring something small." I wanted to sink through the floor. "They're just running late," I said. "They'll be here soon." Even as I said it, I knew something was off. My family may not be saints, but disappearing without a single text? All 3 at once? That wasn't them. 7:30. My phone finally buzzed. Text from my mom. I opened it, already braced for a car wreck or a burst pipe. "Honey, I'm sorry. We're at Harborview Mall with Maddie picking out a dress for her birthday. Didn't notice how time flew. Happy birthday." I read it 3 times. They were picking out a dress for Maddie's birthday, the one that was a month away, while I sat alone at a restaurant table I'd booked for my 30th, the one I'd reminded them about 2 weeks earlier. I wanted to write back paragraphs, say everything at once, how they'd hurt me, how betrayed I felt, how this was the ugliest thing anyone had ever done to me. My fingers hovered over the screen, but nothing came out. I put the phone face down, waved Anthony over. "Can you pack everything to go?" I asked. He blinked. "Sure. Family emergency?" "Yeah," I lied. They couldn't make it. I hadn't even ordered yet. I just asked him to box the things I'd planned to share. Fish cakes, chowder, a couple of salads. He nodded, gave me that soft, pitying look people save for dumped brides and abandoned puppies, and took the menus away. By the time I walked out, my phone was buzzing with birthday messages from friends and coworkers. I ignored them all. Pretending to be happy felt impossible. I went home, put the takeout straight in the fridge, climbed into bed, and basically didn't exist for 3 days. After that, life insisted on happening again. My best friend Jenny Reed, who sits across from me at the co-working space, slid into my DMs. "So? How was the big family dinner? Everyone else was asking too. I wrote back that there'd been a family emergency and we'd postponed. It was easier than explaining. Jenny cornered me on a Wednesday. Look, she said, Friday night. The dock. That bar by the co-working space. We're doing a proper birthday. No excuses. Okay, I agreed. On Friday, there were about 10 of us crammed around a long table at the dock, drinking decent beer, swapping horror stories about clients and their revisions, and singing happy birthday while I blew out a candle stuck in a cupcake from the bakery down the street. No drama, no raised voices, no guilt. Just friends having a good time. It was simple. And it hurt a little, realizing how much easier it was with people who didn't share my DNA. What happened at Harbor House might have been survivable on its own. I could have filed it under "my parents are thoughtless" and moved on. But it wasn't a one-off. During that coffee shop showdown later, I actually made a mental list. They skipped my childhood art contest, where I won second place, because Maddie had a dance recital. They missed my presentation at a college research conference because Maddie didn't feel like staying home alone. They showed up 45 minutes late to my honors thesis defense because they had to drop Maddie off at a friend's house first. I sat alone while other people took photos with their families. Last year, when I got promoted to senior designer at a firm before I went freelance, they didn't come to the staff party because Maddie had a cold. Not COVID. A cold. Meanwhile, they never missed any of her stuff. Not the dance competitions, not the school plays where she had 2 lines, not the barely organized showcases at the community theater. I had always told myself I was being oversensitive, that they loved us both equally. I just happened to be more independent. Skipping my 30th for a shopping trip? That was the finish line. I tried to let the dust settle. A few weeks passed. My birthday was officially old news. Then one night, an email pinged from my mom, CCing half the extended family. Subject line: Maddie's 25th birthday celebration. Important info. You know when your stomach drops before your brain has even processed the words? That. She'd booked a fancy banquet hall at a hotel in town. Maddie's 25th was an important milestone, a quarter of a century, a once-in-a-lifetime event. There would be a DJ, photographer, custom decorations. Very big deal. And then the kicker. We're asking each adult guest to contribute $500 toward the celebration. If this is too difficult, please understand if we can't include you. We want people who truly support Maddie on her special day. $500 per person, after they couldn't even bother to show up and eat fish cakes on my 30th. I walked circles around my condo, muttering to myself like a street lunatic. $500? Are you kidding me? I opened my banking app and pulled up my mom's account from the last time I'd transferred her money. For a second, I considered ignoring the whole thing. Just delete the email and move on. Then a better idea arrived. Petty, yes, but satisfying. I transferred her $1. In the memo line I wrote, "For your big life celebration." Then I blocked my mom, my dad, and Maddie everywhere. Phone, text, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. If they wanted to act like I didn't exist, fine. I could return the favor. The next morning, I called a locksmith. When I'd bought the condo 2 years earlier, I'd given my parents a spare set of keys. Just in case. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Now it felt like a liability. The locksmith swapped out the lock cylinder. New keys, old ones useless. We were done sharing access. 2 days later, I caught a nasty flu, so I was working from the couch in sweatpants, wrapped in a blanket with my laptop balanced precariously on a pillow. That's the lovely thing about freelancing. You can design logos from under a comforter as long as the Wi-Fi holds. Around lunchtime, someone pounded on the door. Not a polite knock. The kind of pounding people use when they know you're home and think they're entitled to your time. I jumped, spilled tea on my keyboard, and crept to the peephole. There they were. All three of them, Mom, Dad, Maddie, standing like they owned the place. Mom was digging through her purse. I knew exactly what she was looking for. The spare keys. Good luck with that, Linda, I thought. I heard the faint scrape of metal in the lock. Nothing. Try again, my dad muttered. Another scrape. Then my mom shrieked, Kate, open this door right now! We know you're in there! The lights are on! I stayed silent. This is beyond disrespectful, Maddie's high-pitched voice chimed in. You're acting like a child. $1? Seriously? You embarrassed us in front of everyone. So I had embarrassed them. Interesting. Kate Walker, my mom barked in the same terrifying tone she'd used when I was 6 and broke a plate. If you don't open this door immediately, there will be consequences. Consequences? What exactly? Grounding me? I'm 30. I pay my own mortgage. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, turned on white noise, and went back to editing a client's design mock-up. They yelled and rattled the handle for about 20 minutes. Then the noise moved away. Through the window, I watched them stomp back to their car, my mom waving her arms dramatically, probably explaining to the universe what an ungrateful daughter I was. Maddie's big day rolled around soon after. I held out until evening. Then, I'll admit it, I cracked. I unblocked my mom on Facebook for 5 minutes to look at the photos. The venue itself looked expensive. Gold balloons, pink ribbons, white tablecloths. Very Instagram. But the room was basically empty. Maybe 15 people max. My parents, Maddie, and a handful of others scattered around a sea of vacant chairs. Maddie's smile was stretched and brittle, like a mannequin. My parents looked like they were at a funeral. I took screenshots. Re-blocked my mom. Same night, my cousin Jake called out of nowhere. We'd been close as kids but drifted. He didn't even say hello, just launched right in. What the hell is going on with Maddie's birthday? I laughed. Nice to hear from you too, Jake. Your mom is trying to shake everybody down for $500, he said. My mom called to say that was insane. Your mom told her, if you don't have the money, don't come. So my mom very politely declined, said, thanks for the invite, but we don't discuss those kinds of amounts. Good for Aunt Paula, I said. Oh, she didn't stop there, he went on. She called all the relatives. Turns out your mom told everybody the same thing. Pay up or don't bother showing. So no one went. Well, almost no one. I heard Uncle Tim and Aunt Tammy showed up. They've got money to burn. $500 is like $10 to them. Serves them right, I said. Your mom's also telling everyone you've gone off the deep end, he added. That you skipped Maddie's birthday out of jealousy. So I told him the whole story. Harbor House, the dress shopping, my dollar transfer, the blocked numbers. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he just went quiet. That's messed up, Kate, he said finally. Like, really messed up. 2 days later, Aunt Paula herself called. She hadn't gone to the party, but she'd already heard exactly how it went. Sweetheart, we need to talk, she started gently. If you're calling to tell me to apologize, you can save your breath, I said. No, she sighed. I'm calling because your mother is telling everyone you're having mental problems, that you didn't come to Maddie's birthday out of envy. She keeps saying you started drama over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I repeated. Aunt Paula, they didn't come to my birthday at all. Instead of a family dinner for my 30th, they went dress shopping with Maddie. That's not a misunderstanding. I walked her through the whole timeline. Harbor House. The text. The silence. When I stopped, there was a long pause. I didn't know, she said quietly. Your mother never mentioned your birthday. At all. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I'll talk to her. Do what you want, I said. I'm done chasing them. A week later, my phone rang at the co-working space reception. Kate Walker, you have visitors in the lobby, the receptionist said. I had a bad feeling immediately. I came downstairs. Of course it was them. My mom looked ready for battle. My dad was shifting awkwardly from foot to foot. This is a circus, my mom announced loudly enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. My own daughter blocked her mother. Is that normal? Ma'am, this is a workspace, not a family therapy room, the front desk guy said. I need you to keep it down or leave. I'm not going anywhere until she talks to me like a human being, my mom yelled. If you want to talk like a human being, you don't ambush your kid at work, I said through clenched teeth. Normal people show up to birthdays they promise to attend. You're being irrational, my dad chimed in. It's obvious you need professional help. My friend Jenny poked her head around a column. Want me to kick them out? She whispered. I can do it politely. I shook my head and grabbed my bag. You want to talk? I said. Then follow me. We walked across the street to a small coffee shop and took a table in the corner. I ordered a double espresso. I had a feeling I'd need it. Okay, I said. Go ahead. You're tearing this family apart. My mom started immediately. No, I said. I'm protecting myself from this family. From what? She demanded. We love you. Interesting way of showing it, I said. Let's do a little test. She frowned. What? What was my major in college? I asked. She blinked. Oh, some kind of design. Graphic design and advertising, I said. And Maddie's major? Public relations and theater, she answered instantly, without even thinking. Right, I said. You know every detail about Maddie. For me, it's some kind of design. That doesn't mean anything, my dad protested. What's my favorite color? I asked. They glanced at each other. Maddie's is pink, I added helpfully. And mine? Silence. Dark blue, I answered myself. Like the dress I wore to my 30th. The one you skipped. This is ridiculous, my mom muttered, but softer now. Maybe for you, I said. For me, it's proof you've never really seen me. I was convenient, independent, didn't demand attention. Maddie was the baby. She always needed something. That's not true, my mom said, eyes starting to shine. Oh, really? I said. When Maddie didn't get the lead in that community theater play, you spent half an hour chewing out the director. When I didn't make the finals of the citywide design competition, you told me, better luck next time. When my company promoted me, you skipped the celebration because Maddie had a runny nose. That's different, my dad said weakly. Those aren't the same situations. How exactly are they different? I asked. Explain it. They couldn't. You're keeping a list, my mom snapped finally. That's not healthy. You're paranoid. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just finally stopped gaslighting myself. She rolled her eyes. You need therapy, Kate. This is all in your head. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up. If you keep showing up at my work or my home, I will file a police report for harassment, and then I'll ask a judge for a restraining order. My mom's mouth dropped open. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said. I don't want to see you again until you can admit you were wrong. Not just about my birthday, about the way you've treated me my whole life. Until then, stay away. I left them sitting there and walked back to the co-working space, hands shaking. I'd always imagined that kind of confrontation would feel satisfying. It didn't. It just felt necessary. 3 months passed after that coffee shop ambush. 3 blessedly quiet months. I buried myself in work, hung out with friends, and even started seeing a guy from my gym, Max. He's normal, which felt like a revelation. He picks up his own emotional mess, doesn't expect a woman to be his therapist, and has parents who actually attend his milestones. Wild concept. Life, it turned out, was pretty decent when I wasn't constantly bracing for disappointment from my own family. Aunt Paula became my unofficial family news correspondent. She'd stop by every couple of weeks with a cranberry pie and updates I hadn't asked for. "The latest theory from your mother," she said one Sunday, sitting at my kitchen table, "is that you're having a midlife crisis." "I'm 30, not 50, I snorted. "That's what I told her," Paula said. "How can it be midlife at 30, Linda? You're being dramatic." She also became my mom's courier. Out of nowhere, my mom had apparently started baking, something she hadn't done in years, and kept sending Paula over with apple pies and cobblers for Kate. I ate the pies. They were good. I didn't unblock my mom. "She's trying, you know," Paula said softly once. "Maybe," I said. Or maybe it just bothers her that I'm not playing the convenient daughter anymore. One random weekday morning, I was checking email in my pajamas when someone knocked on my door. Not the angry pounding from before, a firm, official knock. I peeked through the peephole and saw a man in a police uniform. My heart stuttered. I opened the door a crack. "Can I help you?" "Kate Walker?" he asked. "Yes." "I'm Officer Mark from the Portland PD, he said. "Your parents filed a complaint." Of course they had. He glanced at his notes. "They're concerned about your unstable behavior. They said you threatened them and sent an insulting bank transfer." I almost laughed. "Come in," I said instead. He stepped into my very boring, very clean condo. Laptop on the table, half-finished coffee, stack of design books. Not exactly the lair of a deranged criminal. I told him everything. I kept it short but honest. The forgotten birthday, the $500 ticket to Maddie's party, my $1 response, the lock change, the scene at my door, the work ambush, the coffee shop conversation. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. "So the insulting transfer was $1, he said finally, lips twitching. With a sarcastic memo, yes, I said. "I'll plead guilty to petty. There's nothing illegal about being sarcastic with your own money," he said. "And nothing I've heard suggests you're a danger to yourself or anyone else." He paused. "What I do see is a family conflict that they're trying to solve by dragging the police into it. That's not what we're here for." He gave me a card. "If they keep showing up here, or at your workplace, you can file a proper harassment report," he said. "If you really want that restraining order, talk to the court clerk. But for now, I'm going to mark this as no further action." "Thank you," I said. Part of me wanted to ask if he'd go back and tell my mother I wasn't insane, just tired. But I figured reality would get to her eventually, one way or another. After he left, I sat on the couch and realized I wasn't shaking. For the first time in my life, an authority figure had listened to my side of the story, looked at my parents' version, and quietly decided I wasn't the problem. That did something deep in my chest. About 6 months have passed since the Harbor House disaster. According to Aunt Paula, my mom had her own moment of reckoning. She ran into an old friend, Karen, a nurse, at the clinic where she works. They started chatting, and of course my mother began complaining about her ungrateful daughter, who threw a tantrum over a birthday and was now punishing them. Karen, bless her, didn't play along. She apparently looked my mom straight in the eye and said, "Linda, do you realize what you did? Your daughter put up with this for 30 years, and you couldn't even show up to her milestone birthday. You picked a dress for the younger one instead. And now you're surprised she snapped?" At first, my mom snapped back. Then, according to Paula, she just broke. Started crying right there in the staff room. They talked for 3 hours. "It really shook her," Paula said. She's not ready to admit anything to you yet, but the wheels are turning. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. In those same 6 months, my life has quietly rearranged itself. I'm working. I'm seeing Max. I meet friends at the dock. I take long walks along the harbor. I come home to an apartment where no one screams at me or gives me the silent treatment. And I'm not begging for crumbs of attention from people who think love means you'll put up with anything. Will I ever speak to my parents and Maddie again? Maybe. If they're ever capable of sitting down as adults and saying, we screwed up, not just once, but for years. Or maybe we'll never have that conversation. Either way, my life is no longer a waiting room outside their approval. They told me with their actions, there's no place for you at this table. So I built a new table. And at this one, there's no room for cruelty, manipulation, or family loyalty that only works one way. But I do wonder, from the outside, did I go too far by cutting them off? Or did I finally go just far enough? What would you do in my place?
Hi, I'm really glad you're here. This is an original Tales First story. If you enjoy family drama with a little mother bear energy, then you are in the right place. Alright, let's get into it.
On the bus, my 6-year-old clutched my hand and whispered, Mama, I'm scared. I asked why. She nodded toward the floor and whispered, There's something under the seat. I looked and froze in horror. I didn't cry. I did this. The next morning, my in-laws regretted everything. We call the van the bus. Not because it's actually a bus, because it's not. It's a minivan with questionable carpet and a smell that can only be described as cracker dust and old emotions. But when you have 4 kids, you stop pretending you drive a car and start accepting you operate public transportation. That Sunday, I was the driver. I'm always the driver. I tell myself it's because I'm responsible. The truth is, I can't handle other people braking. And also, if I'm in control of the wheel, I can't blame anyone else when my life goes off the road. My name is Lauren, and I was coming home from visiting my ex-in-laws. Yes, ex-in-laws. And yes, that sounds as exhausting as it is. My ex-husband's parents, Patricia and Thomas, were the kind of people who liked to refer to themselves as family-oriented, which is a fancy way of saying they believed their opinions should be considered a natural law. Family is everything, Patricia liked to say, with the same tone people used to say, oxygen is necessary. I went anyway, because they were still the grandparents, because my kids loved them, because I was tired, because it felt easier than the fight that always followed the word no. I had 4 kids in the back. Lucy, my oldest daughter, 12 going on 42, Noah, 10 and constantly negotiating like he was paid commission, Ethan, 8, sweet until he wasn't, and Ivy, my youngest, 6, tiny and soft and still young enough to think adults knew what they were doing. We were an hour into the drive home when the pressure started building behind my eyes. Not from the kids. Shockingly, they were quiet. Half asleep, half fighting in slow motion over an invisible boundary line. No, the pressure was from the whole trip. The forced smiles, the comments that weren't comments, the way Patricia watched me like she was waiting for me to slip and prove whatever theory she'd been collecting about me since before I even had wrinkles. I told myself, it's fine. You survived. You're leaving. Just get home. We made it across the state line. I did not celebrate. I just exhaled through my nose like I had been holding my breath since marriage. And then, because the universe loves timing, we hit the bathroom emergency. Mom, Ethan said, polite and urgent. I need to pee. Noah immediately panicked. I also need to pee. Lucy didn't need to pee. Lucy never needed anything. Lucy simply observed. We should stop now, she said, as if she was the family manager and I was an underperforming employee. And Ivy, who had said nothing for most of the drive, whispered, "I don't like this." "What?" I asked. She shrugged. "I just don't." "Great. Love that for us." I took the next exit and pulled into a gas station that looked like it had been built specifically for people in crisis. Bright lights, too many windows, and a parking lot full of exhausted parents performing miracles with minimal caffeine. Bathroom trip complete, snacks acquired, children reassembled like little chaotic dolls. We climbed back onto the bus, my minivan, and I did the head count on autopilot. Lucy, Noah, Ethan, Ivy. Doors shut. The world outside went quiet. I slid the key in, ready to leave, when Ivy reached forward. She clutched my hand so hard it hurt and whispered, "Mama, I'm scared." My chest tightened. I kept my face neutral. "Why?" I whispered back. Ivy didn't look at me. She nodded toward the floor and whispered, "There's something under the seat." A second passed where my brain tried to make it normal. A toy. A sock. A spider. But Ivy's fingers didn't let go, so I didn't start the car. I turned like I was checking a seatbelt and said softly, "Nobody move. Don't touch anything." Lucy's head snapped up. "Mom?" "Just buckle," I said. "Now." Noah leaned forward, already trying to see. Ethan went silent. I unbuckled and crouched between the rows, my knees cracking like a warning, and reached under Ivy's seat. My fingers hit something that wasn't floor. A bag. Not dropped. Not slid. Wedged up into the rails like someone had put it there on purpose. I pulled it out just enough to see it clearly. Then I unzipped it. Just enough. I looked. And I froze in horror. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe right for a second. Because the kids were watching. Because Ivy was shaking. I zipped it shut with hands that suddenly didn't feel like mine and shoved it out of sight. Lucy stared at me like she was memorizing my face. "What is it?" Noah whispered. "Nothing," I said too fast. "Nobody looks. Nobody touches." My voice came out calm anyway, like it belonged to someone braver. I smiled at them, too bright, too wrong, and said, "Okay, seatbelts." Click. And then I got behind the wheel and said, "We're going." "To home?" Ivy asked. "Yes," I said. "To home." I pulled out of the gas station lot and turned the van around. No explanation. No dramatic speech. Just a hard, clean turn. As if my body had decided for me, not one more mile in the wrong direction. And then I drove. Fast enough to feel the sweat start under my hairline. Slow enough not to get pulled over. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. I kept checking the mirrors like I expected sirens to appear out of nowhere. Every mile felt too slow. I didn't tell the kids anything. I couldn't. I didn't even let myself think the word for what I'd seen. I just drove like I could outrun the consequences. A few minutes later, we crossed back over the state line. No border checkpoint. No gate. Just a sign and a change in the way my lungs finally remembered how to expand. I pulled into the first safe lot I saw. Bright lights, other cars, cameras. I parked. And only then did I realize I had been holding my breath. Sweat cooled on my neck. My heartbeat hammered like it had been doing cardio without me. The kids were quiet now. Even Noah. Lucy stared at me like she was filing a report. Ethan hugged his backpack. Ivy pressed her forehead against the window. Relief hit me. Thin. Fragile. Because I still hadn't said the words out loud. And if you're wondering why I turned around without a word, you have to understand what my ex's parents were capable of long before that day. I met Brian at university. Not in a romantic, we bumped into each other and dropped our books, and then fate played a violin way. More in a practical, we were both broke and stressed, and he offered me half his sandwich way. He was steady. That was his whole thing. When everyone else in our circle was dramatic, changing majors every semester, dating people with red flags like it was a hobby, Brian just existed. He studied. He worked part-time. He remembered to pay his parking tickets. He listened when I spoke, which, after growing up in a family where everyone spoke over each other like it was competitive sport, felt like intimacy. He had one constant, though: his parents. Patricia and Thomas lived in another state, his hometown, the place he talked about like it wasn't just geography, but a responsibility he carried. "My parents need me," he'd say casually, like other people said. "I have to do laundry." At first I thought it was sweet. Then I met them. Patricia had the kind of smile that looked warm until you realized it never reached her eyes. Thomas was quieter, the type to let Patricia do the talking, but still somehow make you feel judged through silence. They were polite. They were friendly. They were also, immediately, concerned. About me. About my family. About how far Brian lived from them. As soon as our relationship became serious, they treated it like a detour. "You'll finish school and come back," Patricia would say to Brian like it was already decided. To me, it was subtler. "We're sure she's nice," she'd say, with the pause that means the opposite. "But you belong here." They were old-fashioned in a way that made my skin itch. The wife should follow the husband. The son should come home. The family should stay close. And in their minds, I wasn't just dating their son. I was the reason he wasn't where they wanted him. Brian didn't argue. Not because he agreed, because he didn't argue with them. Ever. He'd learned early that peace was purchased with compliance. We got married anyway. We built a life where we were. Jobs, mortgage, a house that always needed something fixed. Then kids. 4 of them. Because apparently my coping mechanism is escalating responsibilities until I can't think. Lucy came first. Sharp, observant, born with the face of someone who already disapproved of our choices. Then Noah, who came out negotiating. Then Ethan, sweet and sensitive, my emotional barometer. Then Ivy, my soft little shadow. Brian was a great dad, present, patient, the kind who could braid hair while making pancakes and not complain. I thought we could handle the in-law problem. I thought love and distance would be enough. It wasn't, because they didn't stop. They just adjusted. Brian had a sister, Samantha, who lived closer to Patricia and Thomas. Samantha was the golden child, the favorite. She could do no wrong. She could drop commitments, make mistakes, disappear for months, and still receive praise. Brian, meanwhile, was the good son, the reliable one, the one who was expected to fix what wasn't working. When Patricia and Thomas needed something, it wasn't a request. It was a test. If Brian said no, he wasn't just refusing money or time. He was failing love. So he didn't say no. At first it was small, a few $100 for a car repair, help with a medical bill. Just until next month. Then it became constant, the same cycle. New crisis, same expectation. And we had 4 kids. 4 kids isn't theoretical. 4 kids is groceries and shoes and school fees and the kind of exhaustion that sits in your bones. I pushed back, not angrily, not dramatically, just practically. "We can't," I'd say. "Not like this." Brian would sigh. "They're my parents," he'd say, and the guilt in his voice would make me feel like I was asking him to abandon an orphan. It wasn't just the money. It was the way their needs always mattered more than ours. Our family felt like something Brian maintained in between servicing theirs. Then the infidelity campaign began. To be clear, I have never cheated on him in my life, but my in-laws did everything they could to convince him otherwise. It started with concern. From what I know, Patricia would say sentences like, "We don't want to worry you, but..." and so on. Then it upgraded. They would claim that someone saw me, a friend from church who lived near us, a cousin who supposedly recognized my car. It was always just concrete enough to stick, and just vague enough to be impossible to disprove. At first, Brian brushed it off. Then he heard it again, and again, and again. And slowly, he changed. At first, it was little jokes that didn't feel like jokes. "Who was that texting you?" he'd say, smiling too casually. "Where were you?" he'd ask, as if I hadn't already told him. Then came the refrain. My mom said, my dad said, every suspicion came with their fingerprints on it. I wasn't fighting with my husband. I was fighting with a committee, and eventually, it broke something in me. The breaking point wasn't a screaming match. It was worse. It was a quiet moment where Brian looked at me, really looked at me, like he didn't know me, like I was a stranger in my own kitchen. "If you'd just be honest," he said. I remember standing there with a dish towel in my hands, the kids in the other room, and feeling something cold settle in my chest. "I am honest," I said. And he didn't say, "I believe you." He said, "My parents wouldn't lie." That was it. Not because I didn't love him, because I couldn't live with someone who trusted his parents more than he trusted the woman raising his children. I drew the boundary. Either you trust me, or you don't get to be my husband. He couldn't cut his parents off. Not then. So I left. The divorce wasn't a war. It was a slow, sad agreement that we were bleeding out and pretending we weren't. Afterward, we co-parented. Cold, functional, professional. From what I know, Brian still sent his parents money. Like a lot of money. He still defended them. Still tried to keep peace. I told myself I could manage it. That the kids deserved grandparents. That I could tolerate Patricia's smile and Thomas's silence for a few weekends a year. So I kept it controlled. Until the day I found that bag under Ivy's seat. Back in the driver's seat, sweat cooling on my neck, I stared out at the parking lot and thought, they've tried to ruin me before. They just never went this far. I stayed parked for exactly as long as it took to get my hands to stop shaking. Which is to say, not long at all, because I'm a mother of 4 and my body has learned to function through panic like it's another household chore. I didn't tell the kids the truth. Not yet. I told them we had to turn around because I forgot something. Lucy didn't buy it, obviously. Noah tried to. Ethan looked worried. Ivy stared at her shoes like she was carrying guilt in her backpack. "Are we in trouble?" she whispered. "No," I said. "You did the right thing." I waited until Noah and Ethan were busy unwrapping snacks like it was a competitive sport, and Lucy was staring out the window like she was refusing to be part of this family. Then I leaned back toward Ivy, low enough that only she could hear me. "How did you know it was there?" I asked. Her shoulders rose like she was bracing for a hit. "I saw Grandma," she whispered. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "She put it under my seat," Ivy said, eyes still fixed on her shoes. "She said it was a secret." A pause. Then, even quieter. "Grandpa said the police would take us." Something cold settled behind my ribs. I nodded like I was calm. Like this was information you could just casually absorb and continue existing. "Okay," I said softly. "Thank you for telling me." Then I drove to the nearest police station on the safe side of the line. I didn't even let myself think about how insane that sentence would have sounded to me a week ago. "Hi, officer. I found something horrifying under my child's seat, and I'm trying not to collapse." At the station, I kept my voice flat, controlled. Because I've learned that when you're a woman in the middle of custody life, the moment you sound emotional, people start translating your fear into instability. I told the desk officer the simplest version. "My name is Lauren. I found an unknown package in my vehicle while traveling with my children." I didn't say the word. Not yet. I explained that I'd just left a visit with my ex-husband's parents and that my 6-year-old, my youngest, told me she'd seen her grandmother put something under her seat and told her not to tell me. I said, "I don't know why it was there. It isn't mine." I gave them the tote. Still zipped most of the way because I wasn't about to start rummaging like I was sorting laundry. The officer asked a few questions. Where were you traveling from? When did you notice it? Did you touch anything inside? No. 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 And then he asked, carefully, "Do you know what it is?" I stared at his badge like it could give me courage, and then I said it. "THC edibles," I whispered, like saying it louder would summon a demon. Not loose weed, not some huge cartoon bag that would smell like a concert. Sealed packaging, branded. The kind of thing that's perfectly legal to buy in Colorado, where Patricia and Thomas live, and very much not legal back home in Wyoming. That's when it clicked in the most nauseating way. This wasn't an oops. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. They knew exactly where I was driving. They knew I'd crossed that line with my kids in the car. And if those edibles had still been under Ivy's seat when I got stopped, if I got stopped, it wouldn't have mattered that I didn't buy them, didn't want them, didn't even know they were there. It would have been in my vehicle, with my children. I still didn't know what their endgame was. Whether they planned to call it in, whether they were counting on a random stop, whether they just wanted the possibility hanging over my head like a threat. But I knew one thing for sure. They didn't put it there for fun. The officer's face didn't change much, but his eyes sharpened. "Okay," he said, and I could hear the shift in his tone. Not panic, but seriousness. They took my statement. They logged it. They gave me a report number. Paper trail. The most beautiful 2 words in my world. By the time I walked back out, my hands were steadier. Not because I was calm, because I now had something solid, something official, something that wasn't just my word against Patricia's perfect smile. I called my lawyer from the parking lot, gave her the report number, told her everything in clipped sentences. She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Oh my God." She said, "Do not contact them. Do not respond to them. Document everything. We're filing emergency restrictions." My mouth went dry. "Emergency restrictions?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "This is an endangerment issue and an interference issue. We're moving." And for the first time since the gas station, I felt something other than fear. I felt anger. Because this wasn't gossip. This wasn't Patricia's passive-aggressive comments. This was a trap with my kids in the back seat. I loaded the kids back into the bus and checked under every seat like I was scanning for landmines. I buckled them too tightly, Noah complained. Ethan asked if we were okay. Lucy watched me quietly like she was storing evidence. I didn't call Brian. Not because I didn't want help, because I didn't trust his reflex. His reflex had always been, defend them. So I drove. Back toward home. Back toward the state where those edibles would have been a very different problem if they were still in my car. The sign flashed past. The scenery shifted. And my chest tightened again. I drove perfectly. Not 1 mile over. Not one weird swerve. I drove like someone was grading me. 15 minutes later, the lights hit my mirror, red and blue. Something in me went cold. I pulled over slowly. The officer approached. Professional. Neutral. "Ma'am," he said. "We received a call with concerns about possible impairment and the safety of the children in the vehicle." Of course. Of course there was a call. I kept my face calm, but my heart was trying to climb out of my throat. "I'm not impaired," I said carefully. He looked at me, looked at the kids, looked at the bus like it was a crime scene. "Do you have anything in the vehicle we should know about?" he asked. And this is where I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I might scream. "Officer," I said, "I just made a report across the line about an unknown package I found in my car. It's not in the vehicle now." His eyes flicked. "You made a report?" "Yes," I said. "I have the report number. I can give it to you." That was the moment his tone shifted slightly, less suspicion, more attention. He asked a few more questions. Where had I been? Who was with me? Were the kids okay? Then he asked, "Do you consent to a search of the vehicle?" And I hesitated, because logically, there was nothing. I had handed it over. But fear isn't logical. Fear said, what if there's more? What if you missed something? What if they hid it better than you thought? I swallowed. "Yes," I said, because refusing felt like something guilty people did, and I was tired of living in a world where guilt is assigned. They searched, quickly, methodically. The kids stared out the window. Lucy's jaw was clenched. Ethan looked like he might cry. Noah whispered, "Are we going to jail?" And I told him quietly, "No." They found nothing. The officer didn't apologize exactly, but he softened. "Drive safe," he said. I drove home shaking, not relieved, furious, because now I knew it wasn't just the tote. It was the call. Someone had wanted me stopped on the wrong side. Someone had wanted me searched. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. "I was pulled over," I said. "They said they got a report." There was a pause on the line. Then my lawyer said very quietly, "Okay, that helps." My skin prickled. "That helps?" I repeated. "It supports intent," she said. "It supports a pattern. We'll document it." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my kids breathe down the hall. They didn't just plant it. They tried to make sure I got caught, and now I was ready for what came next. My lawyer moved fast. I didn't even fully understand everything she filed, and honestly, that was the point. I wasn't trying to become a legal scholar. I was trying to keep my children safe and my sanity intact. She filed for emergency restrictions related to Patricia and Thomas, my ex-in-laws, asking the court to temporarily block their contact with the kids, tighten exchange rules, and strip them from anything that gave them access. School pickup lists, emergency contacts, the invisible little loopholes people ignore until someone drives a truck through them. By mid-afternoon, my phone rang. It was Brian, and he didn't even say hello. "What the hell is this?" he snapped. I stood in my kitchen, one hand on the counter like I needed it to hold me upright. "What?" I said. "Is what?" "Don't do that," he said. "I got paperwork. No contact with my parents. Restricted contact. Are you serious, Lauren?" His voice was raw with disbelief. "Brian," I said, keeping my voice steady, "they put something under Ivy's seat." He scoffed. "No." "I filed a police report," I said. "No," he repeated, louder, like volume could change facts. "I got pulled over after I crossed back," I said. "They said they got a call." Silence. Then he exploded. "You always hated them," he said. "You always looked for reasons. They're not perfect, but they're good people. This is insane." I didn't argue. I didn't defend my character. I didn't beg. I just said, "This is real. My attorney is handling it." He cut me off, voice sharp. "You're trying to keep the kids from my family." Then he hung up, mid-sentence. I stared at my phone for a full 10 seconds. One cold thought flickered in. What if he's part of it? Then another, quieter thought followed. That anger sounded too real to be coordinated. I went back to mother mode. Because mother mode doesn't care about your existential dread. It cares about lunches and homework and the fact that Noah had lost his other shoe again, like he was shedding them for sport. One of the kids, Ethan, asked me softly, "Is Grandma mad?" I looked at him and felt my heart crack in a very specific place. "You're safe," I said. "That's all you need to know." That night, after bedtime, I messaged my lawyer. Brian called angry, documenting. Then there was silence. A couple days where nothing happened. No texts from Patricia, no calls from Thomas, no flying monkeys, just the feeling of being watched by the calendar. I started to think, irrationally, maybe it was over. Maybe the legal filing scared them into disappearing. Maybe the universe, for once, was done with me. Then, 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and found Brian standing there, pale, like he hadn't slept, like someone had reached into his chest and rearranged his beliefs. My first instinct was defensive. "What?" I said flatly. "Do you want?" He didn't argue. He didn't accuse. He just held out a piece of paper, a printout. "Lauren," he said, and his voice sounded wrong, too quiet. "I went to their house." I didn't move. "I asked them," he said. "I asked them straight." He swallowed hard. "And they tried to justify it." I felt my heartbeat slam once. Heavy. He held the paper out again. "I have access to their accounts," he said, like it was a confession in itself. "I've been paying things for them for years. Bills, orders, whatever they can't manage. I know their logins." Of course he did. Of course the dutiful son had the keys to the kingdom. "I checked," he said, and now his voice shook. "I checked their purchase history." He pointed to a line on the printout, a date, a product name, a brand, a quantity, a location, all matching the thing I hadn't wanted to say out loud. "They bought it," he whispered, "right before your visit." I took the paper with fingers that didn't feel like mine. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd taken at the police station. Just the corner of the packaging, enough to prove I wasn't imagining it. I compared them. Same branding, same type, same disgusting little confirmation that reality was real. I looked up. Brian was watching my face like he needed to see the truth land in someone else's eyes so he could believe it himself. "They admitted it?" I asked, voice thin. He nodded once. "They said," he swallowed, "they were trying to protect the kids." A laugh almost came out of me, not because it was funny, because it was obscene. Brian's face tightened like something inside him had snapped into place. "If they could do this," he said, and his voice went hard, "what else have they done?" He looked at me like he was seeing our whole marriage in reverse. The money fights, the accusations, the committee in our living room. He shook his head. "I believed them," he said, and the shame in his voice was raw. "For years." He stood there on my porch, pale and wrecked, holding the last thread of the life we'd had. "I'm done," he said finally. "I'm done with them." I didn't know what to say. He didn't ask for forgiveness perfectly. He didn't deliver a polished apology. He looked like a man who'd just realized his parents weren't safe people. "I can't fund them," he said. "I can't protect them. I can't let them near the kids." Then he turned and walked back to his car like he couldn't stay in my doorway another second without collapsing. I closed the door and stood in the quiet holding the paper. The fight hadn't ended, but it had changed shape, and somewhere deep in me, under the fear, a different feeling started to rise. Relief. 6 months later, Patricia and Thomas don't get to play grandparents anymore. The DA charged them with tampering with physical evidence and false reporting. They took a plea: 18 months probation, 200 hours community service, $2,500 in fines and fees, and a no-contact order that covered me and the kids. Brian filed his own motion to add Patricia and Thomas as restricted contact in the parenting plan. The judge signed it. No unsupervised contact, and they were removed from all school pickups by emergency lists. Brian apologized the way I'd needed for years. Not, "I'm sorry you felt this way." Not, "My parents meant well." Just, "I believed them over you." He asked if we could ever try again. I told him the truth. "I forgive you, but I'm not rebuilding the marriage." And it turns out forgiveness doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes it means finally being able to stand in the same room without bleeding. We did our oldest's birthday together. Same room, no tension, no fights. The kids noticed. They stopped asking who was mad at who. When Brian cut his parents off financially, they couldn't keep the lifestyle. Patricia and Thomas sold the house and moved into a small rental back in town. We're not together. We're finally allies. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you're new here, subscribe for more.